Every brand has a backstory, but some become the blueprint for culture shifting impact. That's Slim Huskies. Slim Huskies is more than a pizza shop. It's a cultural statement, a national movement that's built on flavor, friendship, and fearless entrepreneurship. My name is Brittany and Cole. I'm the CEO and founder of Career Thrivers. We're a leadership branding firm, and today we are sitting down in an exclusive conversation with the visionaries behind it all, Clint, Derrick, and EJ, talking about how these three childhood friends took their idea and turned it into a national movement. But this isn't your average conversation. We're going behind the scenes, behind some of the current headlines, and into the story behind the story of how you build a scaling national business, the leadership decisions, and the challenges that have shaped their journey. This is a conversation about grit, growth, and the weight of success. Let's get into it. So people know Slim Huskies, the brand, the growing now national brand, but today we're going to talk a little bit about the business and the behind the scenes of the business, you all as business leaders. So let's start maybe with what people know, which is you all met high school, college, started a moving company, but take us back right before that, before you jumped into your entrepreneurial journey. What were y'all doing for work? Like, what was the foundation for, like, after you all graduated, like, what were some of your first jobs?
Well, EJ was working in finance for Cummins. Clint was working in sales for Ajax Turner, Budweiser Ajax Turner. I had a bunch of jobs, enterprise, working with, at-risk youth, Monroe Hardin, and then also I was an air traffic controller, which probably my longest tenured job, which was only like a year and some change before jumping to entrepreneurship. So, but all those jobs that I had were building blocks and to what I needed to be successful in business. But we all had our different avenues of business and careers before jumping into the Green Truck Moving Company, which was 2009, the idea, and then 2010 is when we launched the business. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know you all had a lot of conversations about the fact that obviously you all were friends, so it made sense. But like, what were some of the differences in the skill sets that made sense when you're thinking about, okay, how are we going to come together and start a business as co-founders? Like, what are the strengths across the three of you?
Well, that's the good thing about friendship is that you kind of know, the ins and outs of a person. When Mo made that call to move back, there wasn't a lot of things that we could start. We were young, maybe 2 years out of undergrad, still making plans to go to grad school. And so, we sat in a circle, talked about it. And I think it was just obvious, I'll start with EJ, like he's always been a very smart guy, in college. This was my desk buddy because
I help my boy get it though.
we, when Mo and I play football a lot, in sports, a lot of times you have less time to do things because you study hard, you practice, in our case, partying a little bit. But I had to lean on him a little bit because we were both business majors. And so, he helped get me through, at times. But he's always been a smart guy, always been very analytical, you know what I mean? So, good with numbers. So, and he had the background of finance with his first job. So it just made natural sense for him to, be the CFO in the beginning. And then with Mo has always been a great leader, whether sports, or just as a friend, you know what I mean? He got a lot of firsts. I always talk about, he was the, first one of us to have a kid. He was, first to get married, So we've always been able to look at him, and kind of get, some guidance from seeing one of our friends do things. But he's just always been very good at getting stuff done, and building relationships, with people. And so those skills is kind of, honed into him being initially the COO, of the business. And me, like I'm just a free thinker, always creatively, thinking about something. Like I could sit, and think about ideas all day long. But, so a lot of people would kind of, label me as a creative, but I'm also a very, passionate person when it comes to culinary arts. And so, luckily for me, we moved into a hospitality type of business. So I've been able to kind of, show my skills that way, as well. And so naturally for me, marketing, branding, in the food side of things with Slim Huskies, worked well. But no matter what business, whether it was moving company or hospitality with Slim Huskies, we've been able to adjust our roles and skill sets to make for a good flow, in how we operate.
Yeah, I agree. And then I think, it was just natural though. Like all things were natural. Like I don't think that the first business we sat around the table and said, all right, EJ, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this. It was just like almost implicit, like this is what you do, this is what you're good at, we're gonna hand it over, right? And then for the moving company, I was the only one that had a job as a mover before, which was only for about, how long is Christmas break? Like 4 weeks or something like that. So I worked at 2 men in the truck because our roommate at the time, Daryl, he was working at 2 men in the truck. And then he used to come home with TVs and couches and whatever and tips, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So like, man, I need a job, you know what I mean, over the break.
Yeah.
So I got a job as a mover, but it didn't help much at all. All I knew, with the first business, like you gotta have a truck and you gotta have some moving blankets, and then that was it. But we needed a whole lot more than that. But that was like the first business though, so it was kind of natural. Like, and I called them with the idea of the moving company, so I felt it. I felt the responsibility to like, all right, let me get in and try to figure all the things out to lead that business operationally. Yeah.
So you called with the idea. Did the two of you know that you wanted to be entrepreneurs? So I was going back through some boxes, Clint, and I saw a photo of us at, was it Primus for Credit? Like Inroads internship day. So at that point in time, were you thinking okay, one day, I'm gonna do this job, but one day I'm gonna go start my own thing? Or was it more so kind of this initial idea and then y'all were like, yeah, let's do it?
I think all three of us, probably deep down inside somewhere had entrepreneurial that aspect in you to want to be an entrepreneur even before college. And so Clint's father was an entrepreneur, so that's all he knew, right, growing up. And me and Mo, it's funny, we wrote a business plan for a staffing company. So we go to the SBA score office and we got this business plan and we're ready to go and we start this staffing company, and he just ripped it to shreds, proverbially speaking. He just ripped it to shreds, and but that didn't stop us, right? And I think that was something that was just always a part of who we are, wanting to be creative, wanting to just be business owners, right? And it's funny, when Mo told us the idea, I was pretty opposed to the idea of starting a moving company, because I'm thinking man, that just seems so much hard work, and it's physical labor. I don't know, is there anything else you can think of, bro? And so he's well, we don't got no money, so we can take a little bit of money, rent some trucks, and so say it all to say they convinced me, and I guess the rest is history in some respects. So to answer the question, I think it was always a part of who we were. And it's been a interesting journey with the ebbs and flows of the types of businesses that we've started and created.
Yeah, when you were talking about the moving truck company, was the idea to sell? Because I think sometimes in entrepreneurship, it's you may be starting things out of passion, you may see a problem, but you're starting something. I don't know that people are always starting with the end in mind, starting and thinking about, I had a mentor share with me, every entrepreneur will have an exit. You need to decide what kind of exit you want to have. So of course you all sold the moving truck company. Was that the initial plan to sell?
No, I don't think so. I mean, at least for me, going into it was, for me, it was a stepping stone for something else, right? But honestly, I didn't even, I didn't have that background of entrepreneurship like that. Like, I just didn't have much of that in my mom was an entrepreneur because she was a beautician, or back in the day, beautician, not a stylist, but I didn't even see her as an entrepreneur. You know what I mean? It was like she was just doing hair. You know what I mean? But large scale, scaling, exiting, none of that type of stuff all that was foreign to me. So going into it, I didn't think about the exit. I didn't. I just thought about what it takes for us to get from 1 month to the next, and
week to the next.
1 week to the next, yeah, or 1 day to the next, right? Or one move to the next, really. But then as my business acumen and I started researching, all that things start growing and evolving, then it was like, you can sell a business just like you can sell anything else. I mean, the steps are different, but you got a buyer and a seller, you know what I mean? And all things align, you can exit, right? But that didn't happen for me until I at least think about it, was maybe 4 years in business, right? Because I just didn't know. But EJ and Clint might have had that, just inroads or Youth About Business may have taught them that, but I didn't have any of it.
I always wanted us to come in, and how we created it is something like we don't have to be there. And I think that was like one of granted we were there all the time, and the blessing of it all is 3 of us, so it's, we could split things up. But I always wanted whatever we created, I wanted it to not require and dominate all of our time. So you kind of have these principles of like repeatable steps. So it's like something that it's kind of can start running on its own, and those are the types of businesses that we knew could be sold, right? And I think once we read the book together, Built to Sell, it really started like, okay, we could take if we take the right approach, if we package this right, then we could sell it at some point. Even when we started reading the book, that was maybe 2 or 3 years into the business, and we didn't eventually sell it for 4 years after that. So, but it was really just creating a foundation. It was creating the mindset, I'll say even more so than anything, just the mindset of how we approach things and how we, want to approach it as if, one day, whether it was our kids or, we just sell it on the market, it's something that could withstand the test of time, if you would.
Yeah, and I think it's important that, we continue to talk about selling businesses, that are minority owned, because we don't see this a lot in our communities. There's not a lot of stories for us to have at the dinner table or within our circles as friends and families that can show you the benefits of selling a business or the ins and outs of how it's done. And so, just as a trio, we've always had to teach ourselves certain things that people that have come before us may or may not have been able to show us, so we've done a great job of that. We talk about reading books to learn and discuss those books that we read, that we do it as a group. We've done that at every stage of our career, even up to today. We just most recently read a book on reasonable hospitality, in an effort to continue to build upon the experience at our restaurants. And so, I just wanted to mention that too, because, it's not easy to get information a lot of times, what I'm saying, when you haven't seen it done before you, you know what I mean? And I, selling that business was a very interesting time for us. I still remember where we were, what happened when we finally decided to sell our business. Yeah. It was becoming more stressful, and let's just say one day we had one of our trucks had a major accident, that shut down a major highway in Middle Tennessee. And it was at that point we were just like, man, we got to figure something out, because luckily nobody was, was killed in the incident, but there was some minor injuries, but we felt like we, kind of dodged a bullet there. And at that time, we also felt like we had gained so much knowledge in the moving industry, because you got to think, before we sold, we had about 9 to 10 trucks. We had 17,000 square foot warehouse space. We had 50 employees. So at any given time, we could have 10 trucks on the road. And the moving game is essentially like having 10 different businesses, because you could be serving 10 different customers at their homes. So we were learning so much information just about running a business, managing customer service, conflict resolution on a rapid basis as 20-year-olds, late 20s. And, to have that incident happen and make us take a deeper dive into the reality of selling our business was a big step in our journey. Because if we'd made that decision too late, you might have never, learned about Slim Huskies. You know what I mean? So the timing was important.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's a pivotal conversation to have in our community, because I think sometimes people think that selling the business, which for the average entrepreneur is the goal, is aligned to selling out. So there's this mindset that, like, if you sell and if the buyer is not Black, then you've sold out. And it's like, well, actually, that's not the way that it works. So it's, to your point, it's good to have the conversation.
Yeah, I think it's important to have it, because the entire world, outside of the Black community, is celebrating people selling businesses and creating generational wealth for their families to move forward and continue to build, and give back to our communities. One of our, mentors in the past said, the best way to affect your community is by cutting it a check. Well, the best way to cut a check is if you build wealth for yourself. You can continue to cut checks, also give back those experiences to those that are coming up underneath you. And you can't do that without, have done something already, right? So selling a business for us kind of opened our eyes up to what business looks like in totality. It's just not just about waking up every day, working, 12 to 15-hour days on the regular, and then doing it all over again for the rest of your life, and not finding happiness, not being able to go, live that life that you dreamed of. Starting a business is a conscious decision that should have a reward on the back end. And a lot of times, regardless of what it may look like, a lot of your favorite business owners, you think they're rich because you see what they're bringing in at their business. You see how they're packed out, but their financial gain happens on the back end typically. We've done great in business. We've made, we have stores that, average 7 figures across the board. But for the three of us to see a huge payday at some point doesn't happen on the day-to-day operations, because we're busy taking care of, and nurturing that business, taking care of our team members and providing resources back into, this baby that's been born, to make sure that it can grow, continue to be healthy. So for business owners like us and any of those out there, you look forward to maybe one day, recouping what you put in and more.
And I think what happens too, it's important for us to understand, like, in our community specifically, it's just not a lot of examples of, like, you build something, exit, and it's we don't see this process happening, like, consistently over time. So, we kind of shy away from the things that, we don't see. And we always, and at times you might take the mindset that it's one less of this particular business that's Black owned or whatever in our community now, right? And really we just have to think about it. A lot of times entrepreneurs that have sold business go on and do what? Start more businesses. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing with us. I mean, granted, we sold the moving company January 2017, but in 2015, we were starting to work on Slim Huskies. And in the middle of that process, we started a federal contracting company, right? So it's like, you take, people with that business acumen and entrepreneurial mindset, if you would, are naturally ingrained to, you take a resource and you multiply that resource. What better way to do it than start more businesses? So I think if we as a community, like, more so adopt that mentality, and it's not the less than mentality, it's the multiplying mentality, then everyone should be and would be on board with, you know, the things that we've done and the approach that we've tried to take. So.
Yeah, so you sell the moving truck company. You've already started building out Slim Huskies. What lessons did you apply through the exit immediately to the start of this new business? Like, how did you start differently with Slim Huskies than you started moving truck company?
It's a lot easier to start with a little bit more money. I'll say that. I will say that.
But this time I know, at least for me, for sure, but I know we all did. We all started with the exit in mind. Like, we knew we wanted to scale. Like, once you get that first, like when you sell a business, when you have a business, you've accumulated a lot of things, right? A lot of stresses, a lot of assets. Sometimes for us, we were blessed to not have a lot of debt in that first business, right? But some, businesses accumulate a lot of debt, and then when you sell that, and you can walk away with some that's still left on the table after you take care of all those obligations. Like, it's euphoric. It's a different type of, like, weight off your shoulder. It's a different type of high. It's a different type of feeling. Like, it's something that you only probably can get, doing a few things. And that's like winning the Super Bowl for an entrepreneur. You know what I mean? Or national championship, right? Like, that's what it is. That's the feeling. So going into Slim Huskies, like, we wanted to do that again. We wanted to feel that again. But this time we walked in knowing that we wanted to scale the business. It wasn't just going to be a mom and pop thing. But then, there are other challenges that you have when you walk in with that type of mentality, right? Whether that be inexperienced, being naive, whatever that is. The challenges of scaling the business and knowing you want to scale the business is different than the moving company when we just, like, we in it and we just kind of like, man, let's get out of it. We're tired of it, right? It's a different type. It's a different level of responsibility that you have walking in, scaling the business. But we knew that this is what we want to do. And so, and then also just not having a whole lot of examples of scaling this type of business, right? With multiple locations and how to do it and funding and you got so many moving parts. It's just not a lot of examples of that. And, we aren't the first, but that have scaled, a restaurant. But it hasn't been very many examples of that, and probably have even lasted this long. Like, actually not a franchise, we're not franchisees. We, like, created the brand from ground up. It's not very many examples of that in our community, right? But there are. But we've always looked outside of our community for those lessons and examples as well. I think that's one thing that we do well is we don't like dwell on the things that we don't have, right? We don't bask in that. We are avid researchers and very intentional about finding those that have done it before us and how they did it, and adopting some of those methods, whether they work or don't work. You know what I mean? Like, we definitely go out and search for the people that's built these things before us. So
Yeah. What are some things, as you all have been building Slim Huskies, you mentioned talking about things that have worked and don't work. What are some of the things that were, like, instant, like, okay, this is going to be successful? Like, what are the things that, like, immediately worked? And then we'll talk about maybe some lessons and some things that didn't work.
I would say
out the gate.
The product.
Yeah.
Like, we spent 2 years developing a product. This wasn't something, like, you got to think, we got into the pizza game. Our generation was probably one of the first generations to be able to fall in love with pizza in the Black community. My grandmother didn't order us a ton of pizza when I was, growing up, because she wasn't used to eating pizza. You know what I'm saying? When she was coming up, it wasn't
no Taco Tuesday in the 60s and 70s. No Friday night pizza. No Papa John's. Yeah, I mean, it was around, but it was growing. They were growing.
But our parents, you know what I'm saying, was like, okay, we got these kids, let's order them a pizza. Or you have friends that have sleepovers, you know what I'm saying? And that was the birthday parties. Pizza was the thing, you know what I'm saying? And the TGIF era, with Steve Urkel, Topanga, you name it. Like on the back end, when people were watching it, they were eating pizza on Friday nights, right? So it was very important for us to nail that product and take our time. And we don't come from the pizza world, like the pizza creation world. So we had to create a product with no, knowledge of it, right? And I think that's what gives us an advantage when our product is so good, because it's truly authentic. And so we nailed the product, right? But, early on there were some challenges. I think that one of the things that was very challenging for us is, we transitioned our community efforts from Green Truck to Slim Huskies, which means that like at Green Truck, we had a big, push to be able to hire those that need opportunities. We had a lot of friends that were just coming out of being incarcerated. We made sure they had jobs and were, able to provide for their families. And we wanted to have a community initiative, with our pizza shop. And so, Nashville was bubbling. This is post-2010 era, the floods. It just happened. Money is being poured into the city. There were a lot of different areas we could have decided to go to. But none of them really felt right? Like we've always been community guys. We were Nashville kids. Like we have a passion for wanting to give back to our city. So, we went to the corner of 10th and Buchanan because it felt like the right thing to do. As risk takers, as ambitious young men, those want to be change agents for our community. Like we took our concept that we created and intentionally put it in a place that needed the product the most, right? But with that comes challenges. And what I mean is, we came into an underserved community, what would arguably be a food desert, and shout out to Ed's Fish for holding down the neighborhood for a long time, right? And still holding us down. But outside of them, there were not a lot of food options, for blocks. And so, we, faced a lot of issues such as hiring, and not just hiring, but also managing some of the issues that come with those that have less resources and need jobs. We have to focus in heavily and invest more time and money than a lot of other concepts in other places, because our team members might come into work with a chip on their shoulder or be dealing with issues that some team members or other brands don't have to deal with where they come from. And like we have to put our hands and our minds and our hearts on these efforts. We've had to do things like pay for security, throughout the week, just because the neighborhood lacks resources. And we know what comes, with that. And so, these are struggles that we deal with that you might not see, that we might not post on IG. We might go, early on, we had, lots of break-ins because we were a new popular, restaurant on the block. And, we could come pull up and there'd be, a broken window in the back. And it's like, that's something we have to fix now. Extra money that comes out of pocket. We're not going to post that on IG. We're not going to say, hey, to the community, this is what happened, like feel bad for us. Like, that's not why we're here. Like, we're here to create change, but and everything that we're dealing with, we don't have to present to the public, because at the end of the day, what matters most to us is that you love the product when you come in those doors. So, we've dealt with a lot more things, that a lot of people would think of when we first started. But the one thing the product did was bring that community together, for a good tasting pizza. In a safe space, and it worked. Yeah.
Also, experience hospitality. That worked immediately because we came from an industry where you going in somebody's home, like you have to. For us, our movers were uniformed, polo shirts, collared. Even if they, may have complained about, man, it's a collar shirt, it's hot. Like, it's like, nah, we got to be different. We have to the experience, people choosing us have to get a good experience. You know what I mean? We want to be neat and clean and presentable when we walk into somebody's home because, you know, it just is what it is. The three of us, we experienced that first when walking to somebody's house with a t-shirt and them not taking us serious. You know what I mean? Or, in the beginning, EJ might have on a pair of jeans and Clint might have on a pair of khakis and I might have on a pair of sweats. We cut that out immediately because we understood what the perception was when we walked in somebody's house, right? So all our movers were, I would say 90% of our movers were black men, right? And we understood that we have to present ourselves differently. We have to present ourselves with the utmost of class, so to speak, that you can have in the movie industry. And we did that with Slim Huskies, right? We heavy emphasis on training. We would do trainings every week, Thursday and Friday. We knew Friday was gonna be busy. We would do it Thursday, and then we'd do it Friday. We would shut the store down and do trainings because we understood that we wanted people to come in and get the experience and the hospitality that they probably wouldn't necessarily expect from a restaurant on Buchanan, you know what I mean? Or the people that's behind the scenes serving, right? And so we did these trainings. And so that's one thing that we took from the moving industry and brought that to our store was like, we're gonna train, you're gonna look presentable. And we spent a whole lot of money trying to figure out like what looks good, on our staff. And we had these aprons. I remember these aprons probably cost us, these blue jean aprons cost maybe $25, $30 a piece, right? That's a lot of money for aprons. We were taking these aprons and going down to the laundromat and washing these things and starching these things ourselves. These are, 50 aprons. I'm talking about heavy blue jean aprons, but we knew that we had to be different. We had to present a different type of experience in class. So and the look of the building, the feel of the building, that furniture cost us so much money going into it. It was innovative. Those windows look good, you know what I mean? But, they single pane, so no insulation, you know what I mean? But, we just, but we knew that at the end of the day, we just had to step it up a notch being in that neighborhood. So, yeah, but we took that on. Our trucks at the moving company were wrapped. We had the wrap trucks, pretty logo, cars, we had all the things and that you wouldn't necessarily spend money on in that industry. We made sure we were top notch and we took that on, and it worked for us. It worked. It continues to work too for us.
Yeah, I definitely think, as a customer, like you see it's the differentiator aside from the obvious, and it also is what makes you connect. And so you see those differences in the brand and the product. So you all as business leaders, what would you say have been like some of your kind of biggest growth spurts, development opportunities as the business has grown? Like, how have you grown as a business leader in the process?
That's a great question. One thing I would definitely say is to the point of like training, but like developing people. Like, I think it's a difference between you can train someone how to make a pizza, you can train someone how to ring up an order, you can train someone the proper way to clean a restaurant, but developing people to be a leader, developing people to be a leader of other people, is that's a task, and that's something that you really have to be intentional about. You have to have like organized material. You have to like really break it down, and a lot of it starts with the reason why, right? And it, like in the beginning, it was easy to truly identify like the reason why, because people could see. It's like you're coming to Buchanan, North Nashville. It's really was not much of anything over there. You know what I mean? It was an up and coming community, right? And the narrative of our story is like, hey, we're providing light and hope into this community. Come be a part of that with us, right? And that was easy to, have that narrative and to make people understand like the reason why, like the why is so important. And that is truly, that is one of those things where that helped us be able to develop people, right? But as you grow, you kind of get a little bit further away from your original why, right? And not that it has changed, because it's still the same, but it's now, okay, that same why of providing light in North Nashville, does that necessarily work in Memphis or in Atlanta? Or at Belmont University for that matter, right? So it's really like developing people and making them understand, why we're in business, why we're here, and that has to start from us and kind of filter down. And that's something we're, always playing with and trying to figure out, like, what is the best way to, both engage, to, make sure that our team appreciates what Slim Huskies brings to the market. I mean, it's not just a job, right? And it's you're positioning this company in a way in which, people are able to kind of develop, and people are able to take this from just being, just this, $15, $16, $17 an hour a job, to see like the tenets of entrepreneurship, to see like the tenets of leadership, to see, the creativity. And that has allowed some of our staff to go on and start their own businesses, right? From, some of those same tenants, from moving company to guys starting their own moving companies to, folks starting restaurants, catering kitchens, creating products. So like for us, those are those like beautiful moments of where, the development that we put into people actually turned out into something that benefited someone else's life, right? And I think that's one of the essences of why Slim Huskies exist, right? We're here to be a benefit to other people's lives, right? We're here to be a community that people enjoy and want to be a part of, and it's beyond just where you live. It's actually like the community of Slim Huskies, like the community of entrepreneurship, the community of working together, like the three of us, of what we stand for. So developing people and making them understand the why we're here, why this is important, why customer service is important, why pushing out a great product is important, has been something that we've, I won't say struggle with, but it's been something that we're always evolving in.
Yeah, I think it's at the top of the list of most entrepreneurs. If you ask top challenges, it's like it's either team or like hiring, or something that has to do with people. How have you all navigated that? Because one of the things, Career Thrive is a leadership development company, so we love this work, but it's also usually not always aligned with the founder. Like the founder is the creative, the visionary, maybe not as adept in like, how do I bring the best out of other people who may be the complete opposite? How have you all navigated like having to turn up that development piece as business leaders?
Well, I think three different personalities in some respects allows for us to kind of touch people in different ways. So it's like, it'll be funny sometimes, like some of our managers will say like, EJ might say it like this, Clint might say it like this, Mo might say it like this. And it's all pretty much the same message, but it's just kind of differences in whether it be tone or, the overarching point of what's important, so like I think it's the beauty of the partnership is the fact that, we can speak the same language, however, it's just different. What's the term? Different nuance to the way in which we speak it, right? Exactly the same language, but it's like, for example, Atlanta, Memphis, and Nashville, the way we talk is three totally different ways, but it's English, you know what I mean? And it's kind of the same principle. Like with us, it's like it's the same exact language, but we may just kind of say it a little bit differently, and people kind of grasp and gravitate to exactly what it is we're trying to say. So,
anything y'all will add in terms of just your own growth as a business leader? Like what have you had to like, okay, I got to double down on this. I got to really focus on this piece now that we're in a different phase of business.
Yeah, for me, I've had to refocus several times in business. You know what I mean? Not being a numbers guy, right? Not being a marketing guy, being an operations guy, being more like a Swiss Army knife, type of role. It's, we have all these, we've started several businesses, and I've had to refocus on trying to do and trying to accomplish everything, and to boil it down on the things that are essential at that point in time, right? Things that really matter at that point in time, things that are going to make the biggest impact at that point in time, and prioritize those essentials is something that I've had to learn throughout this course of business, as well as embracing like the challenges more, right? Changing the perspective of how I view the pains and the struggles and the challenges and the obstacles, right? I've definitely, that has evolved since, I was 25, starting the green truck, and then 40, with Slim Huskies, and have experienced a whole hell of a lot of different, highs and lows of business. But framing the perspective to meet the highs and lows the same way is something that I've had to develop and work on, and that I feel like I've gotten really, really good at. But of course, I'm 40, so I'm always growing. Myron Golden talks about, I love it. Actually, I think about it every day. I used to think about the analogy of like the keep going thing. It was this meme that we talked about a lot. It was like the guy and two guys in a tunnel. They couldn't see each other, and one stopped, maybe inches before he got to the diamond or the gold, and the other one kept going and pressing forward, right? I just think about that a lot. I used to apply that to, like, you just got to keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. But now I think about, like Myron Golden had this thing about, he had this story about the valley. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, right? And he had this great thing like, what is the valley? What do you gain in the valley? And, he was like, man, you gain God's grace, God's mercy, you gain the tools. The valley is in the center of two mountains. So you at this mountain, at one point in time, you look over, it's a bigger mountain, and you go for that bigger mountain, but you got to go down and go through the valley, and you got to gain all these things to get through it. And then you're equipped with more tools than you had on that first mountain going to the second mountain. And I have I think about that now more than, keep going, keep pushing. It's like, what do I need to keep pushing? What is God revealed to me to keep pushing? What are the tools that these challenges have given me to keep pushing, versus just keep going and going and going? Now I'm going with purpose, and I'm going with the tools that I know I need through that valley.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. And I think the word that's coming to my mind listening to you say that, is wisdom. And I think that's necessary if you're going to be a business owner, and wisdom without feeling like you always have to appeal or appease maybe even your customer with decisions that you make. So kind of speaking of that, kind of in between peaks and valleys, what went into the decision to close the Broadway location, and how do you all see that decision in the broader context of the vision that you have for Slim Huskies?
Yeah, I would say, once you get to the point of growth that we've had within Slim Huskies, you start to learn your business more. Everything's not about, whether or not a restaurant or a business is full or empty. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's about understanding what makes your business grow better. How do you continue to be more profitable? And one of the lessons that we've learned is that opening up, units, across a short period of time, understanding the importance of proximity within restaurants and businesses in general. So for us, Fifth and Broadway kind of was a part of the strategy, that we had set forth about a year or so ago. You got to think post-pandemic, the restaurant industry was taken by storm. You had a lot of different changes. The number one change was third-party delivery, right? And so we start to see these changes, and we realize that we've got some restaurants that are too close, in proximity. The first closure was our Atlanta Howard Mill location, which people in Atlanta know that location and our Metropolitan Parkway location are about 7 minutes apart from a drive standpoint. Seems like two different demographics. However, with the growth in third-party delivery across the board, they share the same delivery radiuses. So, we had to make a tough decision to close down one of those stores so that one of them could truly be a star. And when we made that decision, the sales at the store that we didn't close down, which is, our community-based store, it's in the Deer Park community, Southwest Atlanta, right by the Benz Stadium, down the hill from the West End Mall. Like this was a decision that was not made lightly, but we had to do this for the benefit of business to make sure we continue to grow the right way. Because as you're growing, people want to know what the average unit volume is of a restaurant, right? And we want to increase those average unit volumes at our different restaurants. So fast forward, we have another opportunity, to do the same thing in Nashville. The very similar situation. Downtown, the Slim Husky's downtown is about a 6-minute drive from Slim Husky's north of Nashville, all right? And, we start to see a few of the downward trends, in our business downtown, especially post-pandemic. And so it made a lot of sense for us to do the same thing. Like, hey, let's focus on our community-based store. Let's close this store down. Let's send all the tourism that we used to get to this store, instead of them going downtown now, because it's a tourist area, let's send them back to North Nashville. Let them get a taste of who we truly are and why we truly opened up our business. And, and so that was, a strategic decision that we made. And I think that it was a big decision for the city as a whole because, we were the first Black-owned restaurant in downtown Nashville. But at the same time, I'd like for customers and, people that know our store to kind of look at it through our lens, right? And, we have to give Black businesses more grace to be able to grow. And sometimes growth, can seem like failure to some, until you get a closer look at what's really going on. And so now instantly we've started to see our Buchanan store, numbers grow, right? Previous to starting today, like we were over there and, packed house, right? And so you get to look back and see, okay, maybe along the way, we might have made a decision that if we knew what we knew now, we wouldn't make anymore, right? And so we have to give our businesses opportunities to fail, and because that teaches us a lot, not just as business owners, but as people in general. Whether you got in some trouble when you were a kid or you had a shortcoming, after that situation, you learned a lot about that lesson. And we've had a few of those along the way, as we should, because, at one point we got up to about 14, 15 restaurants, right? But just like other restaurants across the country, especially those that have been around for, years, like we've had to make some key adjustments to make sure that we continue to grow, and for some that, that might look at something like the 5th and Broadway closing and think that, oh man, like you see they're closing stores. Well, sometimes you got to slow down to speed up, and that's okay, right? And we got big plans. We ain't going nowhere. So I hope people don't think this, that's something that, we're going to continue to keep closing down stores. No, we just had to do what we had to do as businessmen, as smart businessmen, to make sure that we ensure our future the right way.
Did you feel the weight of the decision with closing the Broadway store differently than maybe even the Atlanta example, because 3 Black founders, only Black-owned business on Broadway? Like, what mentally were you processing? Of course, you're making a strategic business decision, but through the lens of Nashville natives, Black men, Black-owned business on Broadway. What were your thoughts?
They probably felt a little bit more than I did.
Yeah.
When EJ called me, I was like, "Hey, bro." You know what I'm saying? But because, I mean, you know, again, my shift in perspective has just, I thank God that it's evolved where it's evolved, because I'm able to see the challenges a little bit different, right? I'm able to look at, you know, what people consider failure or loss differently. You know what I mean? And for me, you know, what we did the proof was in the pudding. What we did in Atlanta, closing Midtown and keeping Metro open, it's like, man, we can do this across the board, and it'll have the same effects for Nashville, for, you know, that downtown North Nashville quarter. So I was cool with it. You know, the thing about it is being from Nashville, being, you know, making history, right? It's like we did that already. You know what I mean? The history has been done. Sure. And, you know, one thing I joke about, but like it's true, it's like, man, but also look back on history. You know, history don't always pay bills. You know what I'm saying? So some of our largest historical figures have died broke. You know what I'm saying? Or now we're in a situation where history is being erased, right? So I'm like, cool, we did it, we've done it, the history has been made, but damn the history, like, let's go be good businessmen and do what we need to do to survive, because the restaurant market has become, it's changed a lot, you know, with third party foot traffic being different, inflation, labor rates, like all those things have, you know, post-pandemic has changed the industry. And we hear this over and over again of businesses, you know, daily filing for Chapter 11, you know, bankruptcy, right? Or, you know, closing stores to stay alive. And it's like, you know, regardless of how cool we are and how good the product is and experience, like when you cut it all down to pieces, we are no different than everybody else when it comes to being in business, right? So, you know, we're very strategic, and it didn't take long. You know, it's like, dang, like, man, you know, everybody was, you know, feeling the way, and it was like, but we got to do it. It makes sense, and that's something that I'm thankful for. The three of us, it's like, man, if it really come down to it, we're able to make a quick decision when it makes sense, for sure, and be aligned on that decision, and then be good with it after the decision is made, and not rest on it. So that's a testament of who we are as businessmen and how we operate. So,
and the two things I add to that is to that last point is the being non-emotional. And I think business is the damn near one of the last places to be all emotional, right? And you know, and be in your feelings about everything, because things happen. You can't control economic factors. You can't control customer behavior. You can't control inflation. You know what I mean? And those things are real challenges that every business, whether it be restaurant to retail to real estate, whatever it is, all businesses have these same conditions, I'll say, that make it either great to operate or difficult to operate. And the second thing is numbers. I mean, you know, the numbers tell the story. And sometimes, you know, if you're not paying attention to the numbers and paying attention to what's going on in the economy, and, you know, what are these economic factors and pressures, and, you know, where your sales at, where's your labor at, then you'll be not wanting to make the right decision. You're gonna be paying attention to the right signs. So those two things, like non-emotional business and paying attention to the numbers and the data and what is it really telling you, and that's allowed us to be able to make quick decisions. Because Mo might say, well, look, you know, the tickets are down 30%, you know, what are we gonna do, right? And you know, you have to make a decision, and it's not about feeling bad for ourselves and, you know, and saying, well, we are so principled about what it represented to be downtown Nashville that you don't just make, you know, the right decision. So
yeah. And it allowed us to like refocus, like Clint said, like refocus on the community stories, refocus on the things that that pushed us into the forefront or the light of like, restaurants, fast casual business, boiling back down to the basics, going back to doing trainings, focusing more on the product, making sure third-party delivery now is so essential to the business now, like making sure that is a good operation because it's a different operation now, right? And just refocusing, on the things again that matter to the business, that really matter to the business, that really make us profitable. You can open a bunch of stores, if none of them profitable, then you're not making an impact, right? And so that closing that store and closing stores and being able to refocus has allowed us to, pull the blinders off. Like, man, hey, we did have a lot going on. We did, this is accountability too, right? It's like, man, we had so much going on at one point in time. All these locations, we had a bar, we trying to throw, unplugs and live music events, and we got an art gallery, and we got all these things going on that, the focus shifts from the things that really matter and from the bread and butter. And it's like, things have to happen for you to refocus. And in business, you can't dodge those things, right? And so it's been a good thing for us. It's like, man, we got to start getting back in the stores and saying hello to the customers. The three of us, dapping them up, asking how it's going, how was the service, how was the food, those things is what also made Slim Huskies very special too. And so getting back to the things that make us special closing these stores has allowed us to do that and be more primed for growth because we got all the experiences that we had. And now we're like, all right, like these are the things that work for Slim Huskies. We got to focus on that for the next stores that's coming up.
And I think it's important to understand that it takes time for things to change, right? Like a lot of things you see us doing now or any other business doing now, that decision might have been made a year ago, right? Like we determined in end of 2023 that 2024 was going to be all about tightening the ship, and so we were going to close all of our low performers, so for that, that meant Murfreesboro, that meant Sacramento, that meant Chattanooga, right? And from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, they're closing all these stores. Well, as a business owner, you got to do what you got to do to continue to, keep your dream going. And so just because we just got to the point to where the decision was made doesn't mean that, this is something new. Like for us, like we made that decision at a certain point, and now we're working on some things that you won't see until next year. You know what I'm saying? But, not being afraid. It's the same way you're a risk taker to get your business started. You know what I'm saying? You got to be willing to take that same risk to make sure that it has what it needs to develop.
Sustain.
Yeah, and that becomes the true testament, I think, of leadership, because I can hear my dad in my ear. Anybody can start something. If you can't keep it going, that really tells the story. You mentioned, Mo, some of the other ventures, and so just want to talk a little bit about like what were those decisions around focus, whether it was EGMC or art galleries, like the ebbs and flows of those other ventures connected to?
Oh yeah, those were like fun projects for us, like EG. But even with a fun project, it takes away the focus of the thing. Again, like the things that's working for you. EG was, a passion project of ours because it's like, man, we go out, but we don't want to go out everywhere. We want to be around certain, not like I said, certain demographic of people, but we want to be safe. We want to cool. We like these craft cocktails. We like this type of music. It's like, man, well, we have the means to do it, for ourselves. Like, why don't we do it, right? Now that ain't always a good idea. Just because you got the means to do something, to go do it, right? But we had to learn that, the hard way. But closing EG was essentially, it was a good opportunity for us to sell that building. So we didn't close just the business, like we sold that building, which was, it was much needed. You got to think we still coming out of COVID, you know what I mean? But Nashville was in this bubble where it was a seller's market. We had to take advantage of what we had at that point in time, being on Jefferson Street. And so we did it, you know, and I mean, it was several other factors that went into it, but I think that just focus and the right focus and, you know, going away from the things that matter, but also the right opportunity came along and we had to grab it. We miss it. And do I think it would come back? If it came back, it would be in a different form, right? Maybe where, you know, might be in a hotel setting or something like that, you know. Which Clint always talked about, like, man, this would be great in a hotel setting, you know, we EGMC at a bar at the hotel or some area at a hotel. But and then the art gallery, again, another passion product for us, because if you go in Slim Huskies, it's filled with art. Like we invest in local artists, the local arts, right? And so when the art gallery, the space next to Slim Huskies on Buchanan came available, it was like, man, let's grab it. When we love art, let's open art gallery. Again, you know, one of those things, like, you got the means to do it, let's do it, right? And it was fun. It was a good experience, great experience. But you know, at any gallerist, they know, like, it's not an easy business, and you have to be 100% in it. Like, you can't be, you know, 25, 50, not even 75% in it. Like, to actually sell art, you have to sell art. You know what I mean? You can't just have a gallery with open hours and people come in. Like, you have to be out there promoting it, and we just didn't have the capacity to do that wholeheartedly. So we were able to, you know, do away with that, but still have some art in there in that space. But that's through No Free Coffee now, right? Which was a good thing for us. But you know, all these, and then even the unplugs, you know, Clint was bullish about getting these unplugged and doing these things every month, and it was fun and it was cool. But then you again peel back the layers to, like, man, all this is cool for the community, but as businessmen, we're not making good decisions because it's not making us any money. It's not really moving. It might move the needle for Slim Huskies for a night and EG&MC for a night, but not long term. And so the you know, the way we think now is like, man, anything we do it has to be for the long term, right? And it has to be sustainable too. And all those things that we did, again, it was fun. It was a good look, you know, bringing Manny fresh, you know, throwing the party with Manny, and, you know, I mean, we did a lot, you know, and putting Starlito and with Love Noise and Brass Band on stage on Buchanan, live music event, you know what I mean, for the people. All those things were great. But
black country music.
Yeah, black country music on clubs was
Back
like,
to the roots.
we had some stars on that, you know, on that stage.
Yeah, a lot of several that were on the Beyonce country album performed that night.
Yeah. But, you know, ain't no, you know, all the awards and accolades and all those things is cool. But as businessmen, it's like, man, we got to always pay attention to what works, the essentials, the bottom line, and who we are as businessmen, and how we can make what works for us better and improve on that. And having all those things, just, it was cool again, but we learned a lot of lessons from it. It was good.
Yeah.
It was good on that sense. We learned a whole lot from it. But, you know, moving forward, it's like, man, if it's anything, it's gonna be a bunch of different Slim Huskies things out there. You know what I'm saying?
I think so many entrepreneurs can relate to that, you know, because you see something that's a good idea or something that's trending, or like you say, you have the means, you're like, okay, let me just do it. But I think it's Tony Robbins that said, you know, distractions look like good ideas if you don't have a plan. So I hear you all talking about the plan. Like, we're going to tighten the ship. We're going to focus. We're going to close some stores. We're going to close some ventures so we can focus. And I love that. And then we have things that are coming. So I know you all were recently in the news about being sued by another hospitality company. What would you like the public to know about that as you all are moving forward?
Well, I'll say first, you know, as entrepreneurs, just like maybe professional athletes, we see the comments, right? We know what people are talking about, you know. But I think first, I'd like to clear up the fact
I don't see the comment.
but you know, they don't tune into the social as much. But I keep them informed just because I'm more on.
Yeah, I don't see it till Clint sent it to me.
Yeah. Like, oh, okay.
But I would say this: like, we never had a restaurant at Plaza Mariachi. It just wasn't one. We wanted to open up a takeout facility, you know, for that community, because we really do like that community, and that was the goal at the time. But there ended up being a non-compete clause with the pizzeria that's on the other side of the facility, right? And so that never happened. And you know, there was just a lot of challenges while we were in that space, that where we created a production kitchen so that we could produce some of the things that we were doing at the time, from, you know, pizzas for Titans games, pizzas for FedEx Arena, pizzas for Vanderbilt. Like, we had a production facility, as well as sauces. You know, we grew at the point to where we were making our sauces also at one facility, so they could continue to be consistent across the board, and we would ship to our stores, right? So we were using that space as a production facility. However, in the process, you know, as a tenant, we didn't feel, you know, appreciated, you know, as we should have, because we were having to pay for things that we didn't have to pay for, like faulty refrigeration systems that were a part of the facility. You know, we released a statement, you know, to the public, and in that statement, I mean, we just tell our truth, the fact that we spent around $100,000 extra outside of leases to fix equipment, you know, that was supposed to be, you know, ready for us to utilize. And so, you know, we were advised to, you know, to go ahead and exit that lease. And, you know, we took the proper steps on our end, and, you know, we haven't heard anything from them in, you know, several years. And so, you know, it was very surprising to us to see that, you know, they, you know, filed a suit, you know, and, you know, but this is the thing about business, right? Like, anybody who wants to get into business, and you find yourself in a position like us at a point to where, you know, you've done a lot, you know, and you're, you know, popular, you know, to the public eye, like, so things happen. People get sued, right? You know, and I think for us, you know, we get a lot of positive news that gets pushed out there because we do a lot of great things for our community. You know, and when those things get pushed out there, you know, the publications or outlets that put them out there, they get a lot of clicks, right? Like, we're a popular brand in Nashville, and so we understand that. So when things also get published that don't look like, you know, so positive, we realize that those same outlets are gonna put those stories out there, and you got to be okay with that. But, you know, just understand that, you know, people get sued. Sometimes there's a winner. Sometimes there's not a winner. You know what I mean? But it's just part of the game. But for us, like, you know, we deny the claims.
The thing and the thing with business, it just requires like such a layer of thick skin, you know, both from what you would consider your community, and you realize it's like, because we're not always so well informed about how business works, it's negative in some folks' eyes, I'll say. Whereas again, we understand that, you know, it's about making strong business decisions. It's about approaching decisions non-emotionally, and not with a lot of sensitivity, right? And, you know, as Clint said, I mean, we have some strong facts to stand on. You know, we didn't operate a location out of that spot. We wanted to, but out of no fault of our own, we weren't able to. You know, we wanted that space to work, to produce, because we saw like what it could be, right? And you know, for it not to work, again, because of no fault of Slim Huskies, I mean, it was a challenging situation, you know, especially when you're shelling out tens of thousands of dollars in an 18 to 24 month period, you know what I mean? So we, again, for us, the integrity of who we are, relying on the facts, relying on, the merits of what we signed up for and what, the intention was, and even the level of communication. We did maintain a level of communication up until, April, May 2023, right? And we just lost communication. And so, we, again, the things that we come into, we've never just left our community hanging. We've never, our responsibilities are our responsibilities, and we approach it as such. And we're, we can always hang our hat on that. And even if our community might not understand, what happens, and it's some good fodder, some good gossip, some good things to talk about. We have the thick skin enough to just understand it's just part of this process. So when Mo talked about the example of the valley, these are those valley moments sometimes, and you have to go through these things to understand, like, okay, well, maybe next time we'll structure the lease. If this space is about refrigeration and us needing 2,000 or 3,000 square feet worth of cold storage, we're going to structure the lease maybe a little bit different, right? And we'll specify some things a lot different. But it won't, for us, it's like, we're not feeling sorry for ourselves sitting here. We're continuing to march forward, and, we're going to fight this, and we're going to, clear this up, and prayerfully, there's an amicable resolution that we could find, and we could just move on, and that's just the cold, hard facts of being in business. So all those facts, all the folks who talk about entrepreneurship as this glitzy, glamorous thing, these are the times where it's not so fun.
It gets muddy.
Yeah, it gets muddy.
Yeah. Growth is painful.
Growth it's rough.
It's painful. But like it's lessons on the other side of that pain and that growth. And as we talk about like comments and stuff like that. I was talking to my wife, and also a budding entrepreneur, Rolf Era Malia, and I was just telling her, like, we go to church. This Black community, we go to church. We grew up in the church, right? And shout out to Bishop Walker and Faison and Terry Anderson and all these other pastors I listen to on a regular basis, and the lessons that we get from in churches, in the Christian community. The Black community is primarily a Christian community, right? But also just America is a Christian nation, right? But we get all these stories about Job, Solomon, Abraham, God testing their faith, throwing these things at them, stripping all these things away, going through famine and all these hardships. And then, but as long as the faith stays there, and you stay obedient, then there's something good on the other side, right? And it's like, I'm thinking like, man, we go to church and we hear these messages every single Sunday, right?
Yes.
Every Sunday. But when it's number one, we don't do a good job applying it to our own lives, but we definitely don't give grace to the folks that's out there really taking risks, right? Really getting off the couch, not sitting behind a computer or a phone, like taking these risks and putting these dollars into, millions of dollars that we've shelled out for these businesses to grow, and millions of dollars that we shell out on a yearly basis to our employees, right? As far as payroll, millions of dollars that these vendors, we support these vendors, right? In our communities, right? Millions of dollars of community service, right? Millions of dollars in partnership, right? It's like, in the comments, when people see the hardships, it should say that from the lessons that we've learned that, oh man, like this happened to them, man, they got something good about to happen, right? Because these are lessons that we take from our faith, right? But it just don't apply. And we don't give each other enough grace. You know what I mean? We don't apply the same principles that we sit in church and, raise our hands and, clap our hands. We don't give that same to people that sit next to us that didn't come, 800 BC. You feel me? But life is still life, and life still life's the same way as it did then as it does now. But we don't, for some reason, that's not a frustration for me. It's
It's a fact.
It's a fact.
Yeah, even
what I mean?
biblical, it's like,
Yeah.
Hosanna, crucify him. Like, come on, what are you
There
doing?
you go.
Which side are we on?
You know what I'm
So yeah,
saying?
I think
Yeah.
you're so right, and I think anyone would be just crazy not to. I think one, and if you haven't heard it today, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for the impact to the community. Thank you for the impact to the culture, and also I think being a Nashville native, helping to rewrite the story of what Nashville is about. And you all have been able to do that not only through pizza and your product, but also through your leadership, also through the brand. So I want to talk a little bit about your partnership with Nike.
Yeah.
Right? Tell us a little bit about how that came about and how you all see partnerships like that as business leaders being connected to the bigger vision of how you're growing your business and scaling.
I think it's important for people to understand that first off, ideas and relationships take time. Nothing happens overnight. The partnership with Nike is a great example of that, where we are all fanatics, right? Like, you're gonna see us with some fly shoes, you're gonna see us with some nice hats, right? Like this. That's pretty much a given,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Everybody throw your feet in there. But yes. So we always want to be able to give back to our team so they can understand us better. When I say our team, I mean the employees of Slim Huskies, right? And so we came up with an idea to, basically provide, instead of giving out a gift card or a plaque for Employee of the Month, we call it Premium Performance, right? So it's our monthly incentive to our teams. We would give the winner a pair of Nikes that we would create on Nike ID, right? And once we created the system and we saw how well the teams, reacted to it, we're like, man, we got to pitch this to Nike. But it's like pitching to Nike, and it's not easy as it sounds. Like, first of all, you got to find somebody who
The right
got
person.
the avenue to really, first hear you and then take it to the right, chain of command. And so I reached out to, one of my homeboys about it. He's pretty connected, one of our homeboys, and he put us in touch with a couple of the young creatives at Nike. And we put together a presentation, and the idea was, we're the Preem team. Slim Huskies is a team no different than the Los Angeles Lakers, the Boston Celtics. Like, we're building a team day in, day out. We're going to work in our Nikes, lacing them up, and the whole goal is to win a championship. We're trying to be the best, pizza shop in the game, right? And so, let's figure out a way to, work together, and implement this program being, fully picked up by Nike, and supporting Slim Huskies. Pitch went great. But if you've been in business long enough, you're gonna get no, right? And so they basically were like, man, we love the idea, but unfortunately, the dollars right now for for things like this are tied up into other things. And that basically they were telling us that there's a project that they're working on called Yard Runners that is basically highlighting HBCUs, and that's why all their marketing dollars are for stuff like this at the time. And so I was like, all right, man, well, I appreciate your time. And before we got off the call, they were like, well, did any of you guys happen to go to HBCU? And it was like, actually, yeah, all three of us went to Tennessee State. And it was like, well, y'all wouldn't happen to be athletes, would you? You know what I'm saying? I was like, actually, a couple of us played football, right? And he was like, all right, man, well, I'll tell you what, man, give me about a day, I'm gonna give you a call back. And so this project had already, been pretty much planned out. They had their people lined up, but then, just having an opportunity to speak with them and meet with them, like they took a deeper dive into our story and I guess felt as though, man, we need some Huskies on this project. And so they end up adding us to the Yard Runners project initially. Now, this particular project didn't have a shoe component. It was for just the Yard Runners merchandise and the movement, right? And so we went down and we did the modeling forum at the AUC in Atlanta, Clark Atlanta University, and they were gracious enough to change the scoreboard in the background behind our pictures to say Slim and Huskies, and it was cool, right? But this is when I say stuff takes time, because we built relationships with that team from Nike. From the moment we went down there, I think we went out to dinner with them. You know what I'm saying? We went to the club actually. Right? We just connected and we just kept the conversations going. And a year and a half later, they reached out and was like, "Hey man, shout out to my guys Rich and Arenze. They basically were like, man, we're doing this shoe, the Yard Runner shoe, and this year it's going to be the Terminator. And typically we do these shoes with the school, right? And a representative from the school that's a Yard Runner, but they were like, man, we want to highlight the Slim Husky brand with this shoe and kind of let you guys tell the love story through the design of the shoe through Slim Huskies and Tennessee State. So everybody else who was on the project was doing major things. They were representing their university. We got a chance to represent our university, but also represent the brand. So, you pull that shoe off, it's got the Slim Huskies logo on the insole and
Slim Huskies on the tongue, and it was something that they hadn't done with a brand like our size, probably like ever. You know what I mean? It's a restaurant brand, and so it was an unconventional, something for Nike. But the story, Nike tells a great story, right? Like no ifs, ands, buts about it. We got brands that stand the test of time because they tell a great story, great logos, great marketing, branding. Nike understands that, and Slim Huskies being a smaller brand, we understood that we have a great story, and it aligned in that way with Nike, Slim Huskies, then the story of TSU. All the gold medals and, the triumphs and all those things, being the HBCU, like it's a great story. And we were able to tie all three of those together. And it was a blessing. I mean, again, this was something that they were clear, they were adamant saying like, this is something that we don't really do unless it's like, you got your McDonald's, Travis Scott's and stuff like that. But a small brand like us, like this just doesn't happen regardless, So it was a testament again of relationships, but also what we've done as a brand in our communities and nationwide. So it was dope. We didn't get to go to DC for homecoming. I mean for the game, but we saw pictures and TSU represented. So it was a good feeling.
Yeah, I love that story. Started with the pitch.
Started with the idea.
Yeah. Well, and started with something that you were already doing.
Yeah.
The free performance, and you were already buying the shoes anyway. Yeah, that's such a cool story. Any other partnerships that y'all are working on right now that you're looking forward to? They're coming up.
Yeah, we've got one that we're working on. We haven't officially signed any paperwork or anything, so I won't put the name out there. But it's a hopefully it'll be in about a month, and it's designed to. This one is a big one because it's going to be able to affect other entrepreneurs and hopefully provide some like $5,000 grant to several like around 100 entrepreneurs in the city. And so there'll be some more announcement about that here coming up soon. And we look forward to being able for this partnership to really help some other people come up.
Yeah. Also, partnership with, we again, like the aspirations that we have revolve around now Slim Huskies only. You know what I'm saying? So some strategic partnerships that we're working on to continue to grow the brand. Whether it be franchising, more licensing deals. So airport location is a licensed location. College to universities, Belmont, MTSU, Morehouse, Jackson State, working on some deals with that to continue being on these college campuses, but also, frozen pizza, like all these things that we are actively working on to continue to grow the brand. But it's just about Slim Huskies, and so, but definitely some great partnerships are coming with that. It's just, legality ways, you can't talk about it, like, you know what I mean? But they are there. Things are, a couple of deals have been pen to paper already. It's just the weight game of like being announced and being like solid enough to say, all right, like, we're entering the retail market, more licensing on college campuses and airports and franchise and all those things. So
yeah. I love that. I love that. Let's wrap up with leadership. I heard you say something that I wrote down, fall in love with the sacrifice. What has being a business owner and building Slim Huskies cost each of you?
Oh man. I've said this several times, but when I'm saying fall in love with the sacrifice, number one is that making a sacrifice for anything, whether that's for Lent, Ramadan, whatever, like the sacrifice is so you can grow, right? Is to either you go without so you can grow, and in entrepreneurship, like you go without a lot, right? Again, like Clint said in the beginning of this conversation, is that we get paid last, right? Sometimes last means not last in a week, a month, several months. You might go without getting anything from the business, but you're waking up every day, pressing forward, right? That's the sacrifice within itself. And then the family sacrifice, right? Like your family seeing you, wake up at 2:00 in the morning and go deliver something, or go open the door, or go, come home dirty because you've been behind the line cleaning and moving and all those things, so and maybe all of us try very hard not to miss out on the essentials, like the baseball games and basketball games. But there comes a time where you have to sacrifice, right? And you got to go do those things. Sacrifice friendships, family relationships. We've all three of us sitting here has had to make that sacrifice, and we have lost relationships and business deals, and skin sometimes, almost fingers sometimes, you know what I mean? Like we've lost a lot of things that at one time we valued, but then that's the thing about growth, and for me, like God revealing like those things that you sacrifice, like, I'm stripping these things from you because it's dead weight a lot of times, right? These are the things that you sacrificing so you can fly, right? So you shedding these things, but you also gaining, wings, or you gaining more power, or gaining all these things so you can fly. And fall in love with the sacrifice for I said that to a group of young entrepreneurs, and it's like, listen, you're going to miss out on so many things trying to grow a business. You're not going to be able to, like for us, we had friends that, they got good jobs, about 26, 27, they had some good jobs, and they were, going, taking a whole lot of traveling, right? Our traveling was in a truck. You know what I mean? We got around in a 26-foot box truck, right? We had a good time driving, however many hours to New York or Chicago or Florida or whatever, right? Like that was us, right? But our friends, they might fly, some of them flying first class, right? They got pictures on the beach, they got a new car, new house, all those things. And you miss out on those things when you're trying to grow a business, right? And it's a sacrifice, but it's cool because again, you in it for the long run, and then you're gonna get what's for you at the end. But to be able to look around and see all these things happening around you, like you get FOMO, right? And you get this urge to go, splurge on, you just got a big contract and it's hot for a couple of meal and you ready to go splurge, and you can't do that because you got things you got to take care of in the midst of this contract, right? And so fall in love. You have to fall in love with the sacrifice, because if you don't, you're gonna miss out. You're gonna miss out on the blessing, and you're gonna miss out on the lessons, and you're not gonna grow. You're just not. If you don't fall in love with the things that come along with the growth. And so, that's what that meant when I said that. And you got to be cool with losing some things in the midst of it.
Yeah, I would just say, I've recently, thought about, just our tenure in business and, ask myself, like, what does this look like from, 20 years from now? Like, what will we have recouped based on all the work that we put in? And I think I've kind of, settled into a place that no matter what happens, like, we have become a bridge for the people behind us to be able to go further than us. Like, people, ask, do you think you grew too fast? Looking back on it, somewhat, but what I'm not apologetic about is the fact that, we're continuing to pursue our dreams, and that the work that we put in allows these other little Black boys and girls to sit at our tables and pull out our coloring sheets. It tells a story of starting something from nothing and being able to envision themselves doing something like us one day, handle it better. So if we never opened up a store in this neighborhood or that neighborhood, we might have missed a kid here and there. But I'm glad that, we are in a place where people can, we can be the exposure for people that we didn't have, right? And I think that, you got to be okay with the fact that it's going to be tougher on you than it is on the next person, because you're the one that's laying the foundation. And, the other thing I would say is, when for falling in love with the sacrifice, you also have to fall in love with your family. And, we've worked so hard over the last, decade, last 15 years, right? We've been working for ourselves for 15 years. That's crazy to think about. We were 24, 25 years old when we started our first business, right? And this is a couple of years after college. And in that time frame, you focus so much on, the ins and outs of your business and trying to be successful that you could lose yourself. And not just lose yourself, but the relationships that you have with the people that depend on you, right? And, your mother, your father, your sisters, your children, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, for me, I got to a point where I felt like I needed to be in the restaurant all day long for it to work, and for it to, to not miss anything, right? And, I would encourage entrepreneurs not to fall in love with that, right? But fall in love with the time that you have with your loved ones around you, because when you get in a position that you feel like you may not be able to get out of as a business owner, you can't depend on your friends all the time to give you the love that you need to make it through. Like, you got to reel back to, the bonds that you had when you were 5, 10, 15 years old, when you were side by side with your siblings, you know what I'm saying, getting whoopings or, or just playing around, right? And like, you got to lean and depend on those memories. But like, as you're falling in love with the sacrifice, man, fall in love with the fact that you got people around that want you to win. Don't forget them. because you're gonna need them one day, and they gonna show up for you if you give them that love to get you to the next step.
What has building Slim Huskies cost you as a man, as a leader? What have you had to sacrifice?
Aside from, what my partners has said, I think ego is like a thing, right? And I think us as human beings, you just have this, we kind of walk with this air sometimes of and operate within a sense of ego, and that can be closing Fifth and Broadway, that can be dealing with the lawsuit, that could be, sales going down, and so it's like making decisions strictly off ego, right? And I think it's very important to position yourself sometimes to just be stripped of that and to truly it's not about like me, it's about, what is God trying to show me, right? And what is, if I'm so if I'm so stuck in my ego and how I feel something should be or how it's going, what am I missing? What is God trying to tell me that I'm missing, right? And I'm thankful that I can work with on a daily and operate with two men that don't approach everything with so much ego, right? And I feel like that's truly been a blessing, but it's also something that we all always have to keep in mind, right? Is like how we're approaching decisions. Is this about ego, or is this about truly listening to what God is telling us, or truly listening to the numbers, or truly listening to the things that really matter? So I would say that, and then lastly, faith, and it's not we all understand the concept of faith, but when you're in those deep moments of decisions and things, crisis are arising, is just really tapping back into having that ultimate level of faith and belief in yourself and belief in God, that He hasn't brought us to this point for us to fail, and but even coming back to ego, what the world might deem as failure may truly be such a beautiful thing that it's that was just part of the destiny and design of what we were supposed to be, who we're supposed to be, and what the future of this company that we're creating is actually going to be. So we don't probably look at failure the same way as the world might look at failure, and a lot of that is because we have faith and because we don't operate in this strong sense of ego. So
yeah, that's so good. Like you were saying that, EJ, and I was thinking about what I was thinking about, John 15:5. It talks about being able to bear more fruit, and if you're going to bear more fruit, you have to go through a pruning process.
Absolutely.
Like things have to be cut back, not so. And it to the world, it may look like, oh well, what's going on with them? Should we be worried? Like, no, still go buy the pizza, right? But they're cutting back in order to be able to bear more fruit. So
Yeah.
I love that.
And the minute you're so focused on the external world, is like, what are they saying? I mean, not that you don't, you listen to comments and reviews to get better, but you don't listen to it in the sense that it affects who you are as a person and what your purpose is and what the why is and all those things. It's not about that. It's about the work we're putting in, how much we're working together, how much we're staying focused, and the results will be there.
You got to go through the pruning process, and there's peace in it though. It really is peace and being grounded in faith, because it's grueling. This is a grueling. Entrepreneurship is grueling. There is no, and it's especially when you have big ambitions to grow, and then when you have employees, the amount of employees that we have, the amount of overhead that we have, you got to make these decisions for these people who their lives depend on it. That in itself, that responsibility is grueling. You know what I mean? But if you centered and aligned with God, and the faith is there, then it makes this process a whole lot easier or palatable. You know what I mean? But this entrepreneurship is grueling. It is. It's a sport. It's a gladiator sport. Much more than probably you're doing the impossible almost. But then there are examples that shows that this isn't impossible.
Yeah, love that. If you had to describe your leadership brand in a sentence as a leader, how would you describe it?
What an interesting question.
Yeah, that's a good question right there.
If I had to describe my leadership brand in one sentence, my sentence would be do things with purpose, and the rest will follow.
I'm not gonna ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. Hands on with you. I'm gonna jump on that line when y'all busy, you need an extra hand, make some pizzas. I'm gonna stay and clean up the restaurant with you. That's what it takes. Cause I've been there, done that. You know, I'm gonna ask a lot of you, but only because I ask a lot of myself.
That's what I was about to say.
Ronald said it's still compound. He had some extra punctuation.
I chopped it up.
You chopped it up.
You know, mine would probably be my leadership is hard but fair. You know, yeah, it's hard but fair. I'm a nice guy. You feel me? Like I am a nice guy. You know, maybe you know, rough around the edges when it comes to, and this is something I've had to acknowledge. Like my approach, right? It can be very straightforward, very blunt, because I've learned that I don't want to leave anybody with anything to chance or any. You know, if it's a no, it's a no. You know what I mean? Like not a maybe. You know what I mean? But I'm very fair though. Like I'm fair. I'm fair to the people around me and the business, but I'm also fair to myself. And I don't think we think about entrepreneurship. You lose a lot of yourself in it, and you stop thinking about self so much. But I am hard on myself, but I'm also fair to myself. And the same thing, I'm hard on about business, but also fair.
Love that. What do y'all have coming up? What are y'all looking forward to thrive in 2025 and beyond?
I'm looking forward to all the changes that we've made, and the way we've grown throughout. You know, especially after 2023 on, until now. Like all the things that we've learned and been equipped with. I'm ready to see all that come together and see and experience what is after that. Like that's what I'm really, really, really excited about.
Definitely excited about opening up Slim Husky's Franklin, which is another community that is, it's far enough out to the proximity, you know what I'm saying, doesn't affect any other stores. It'll be a new demographic for us. One that I think, truly is looking forward to our brand, some more high-end market, more higher average income. And we get a chance to be in a facility with a lot of other great brands around us. And, I'm also looking forward to, I just recently moved to Atlanta. So I'm looking forward to hopefully doing some expansion down there. That market has been amazing for us. Our busiest store, outside of the Nashville airport is our Atlanta store. They show us a lot of love, and they understand the brand, they love the brand, and they want more of the brand. So like I'm looking forward to getting more active in the Atlanta market and seeing what we can do down there.
I'm looking forward to aside from the growth, but the shifts in the brand will make incorporate more technology into what we do. slightly making changes to our locations, you know, making it just a better environment, both for our team as well as customers. And the second thing I say is building some new leaders. I'm looking forward to that next phase of Slim Husky's leaders because we have some awesome people that have helped us make this dream come alive, and you know, to build some new leaders in 2025, 2026. I mean, we're just super excited about that. So again, it's never really been truly about us. It's about this community, and we're just so passionate about making it that much better. I mean, what better way to do that than some new blood, some new leaders, some new folks that are going to carry the torch of Slim Huskies and just continue to make it great. Yeah. And so,
I love that, but I don't think there's a better place to end. When people thrive, businesses thrive. So
Yeah,
that's it.
for sure.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank y'all.
See you.